today's problem I'm actually low-key kind of excited about. So this one's a chess one, and I'm actually pretty good at chess, contrary to what my 298 rating on chess.com says. I used to play in tournaments. I used to be cold as a kid, bro. This Bobby Fischer book doesn't help at all, dude. I should be better at programming than chess though, so let's get it going. So I'm getting this problem off of a site called Codewars. I'll put the link in the description. If you don't know, it's pretty much just like an interview question, like puzzle programming practice website. But this is a lot going on, so I'm just gonna explain it the best way I know how, the way I understood it. All right, so the big idea here is we have a pseudo chessboard. We have a red knight, a white pawn, and a black pawn. And the knight is chasing the pawns across the board. There are a couple rules that dictate how the pieces move. Of course, the knight moves in an L shape and the pawns move forward one square like normal. I'll put them up on the screen. These are the rules. So this is the board example that they give on the website. We're just gonna work through this together through my illustrious drawings. I know, you don't have to tell me. So before we start, I just want to get some notation out of the way. This is a blank chessboard that we're going to be using. I know, so well drawn. So the columns, I may refer to them as files here and there. I'm probably going to interchange a little bit. And then the rows are ranks. So think rank, row, column, file. Cool. So this is our starting position. Notice how the red knight starts on rank 0, file 0. It's one of the rules that the knight has to start on file 0, column 0. Of course, the white pawn starts on rank 0, file 4. The black pawn starts on rank 1, file 4. So my first thought was like, okay, 2D arrays, or we'd be using two-dimensional arrays. That's actually not the solution. It's not even close, unfortunately. So let's get into the movement and how the game is played. So as you can see, I have arrows drawn in the direction that the pieces are going to move. So the pawns move first and they move together, and then our red knight moves. This is essentially our next position. I have new arrows dictating how the pieces are going to move again. Notice the red knight's getting close. You might even be able to predict where they're going to end up intersecting. We're just going to keep going. Third move. Now don't get confused on this position. Remember, the pawns have to move first. So by the time the red knight gets to 1-6, the black pawn's gonna be out of there. So here's our fourth position. You can probably tell it's the next to last one. The red knight's gonna end up catching up with the white pawn on rank 0, file 8, and we'll have our solution for our little example. So here is kind of where the puzzle, according to the rules, finishes. The white pawn's been captured. In our program, we're gonna have to report the file it was captured on, as well as the color of the pawn that was captured. So essentially, this is a sequences problem. Here are the sequences I derived. If you want to know how I got them, leave a comment. I'm definitely not gonna bore you guys with that. It was tedious. I haven't used this math since junior year. It's not difficult, but you know what? I got it. That's what counts. So let's get into this code, bro, because I'm excited to show you this and walk you through it. I don't think this is how old dude that wrote it intended us to solve it, but I like kind of an object-oriented approach whenever I write code. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start with an abstract class, and we're gonna call it piece. Essentially what having an abstract class is gonna do is allow us to create instances of a piece for the black pawn, the white pawn, and the red knight. I may do a couple other videos. Just about every video I do will probably have some type of object oriented in it, so you can look it up on your own, or if you want to stick to my content, I'll probably be pumping out videos all the time with object-oriented stuff going on. If you're kind of new to object-oriented principles, essentially we're creating an object that we can have multiple copies of. So think of the pawn or the knight that I showed you. Just imagine a bunch of those, right? But we're really only gonna have one because that's all we need to play the game. We'll have one of each to fill the board. Now let's think about our fields. Let's think about our properties. What do we need to keep track of with each piece in order to essentially solve our problem at the end? So for each piece, we're gonna keep track of the file, so the column, and the rank, which is the row. We've given each piece the information to say, okay, here's my rank, here's my file, here's my row, here's my column. How are we gonna get this information out of these pieces? We need to make a function that gets the pieces to tell us, hey, this is where we're at. So we're going to create a method. This isn't an abstract method. This is a fully fleshed out method that tells us, okay, this is my rank, this is my file, that gets essentially this information for us. And it's going to return it nice and neatly in the form of an array of integers, actually. Okay, so we're playing this game. Obviously, from what I showed you with the demonstration, we got to be able to move. So we need to implement, we won't implement it here, but we need to have a function available to us for movement. So we're gonna call it abstract void move, because it's not gonna return anything. All it's gonna do is update either the rank or the file, depending on what we're doing. And of course, in order to make these pieces, we need what's called a constructor. Now, this constructor is a default constructor because we don't put anything in it. Okay, so boom, now we have this abstract idea of what a piece is gonna be. So let's actually flesh out the pieces. Let's create a black pawn, a white pawn, and a red knight like we need. Now this is just Java syntax, but because we're creating an instance and we're extending an abstract method, we need to put the extends keyword and then extends what? Extends piece. So we need to implement the move method here. Remember from our rules, I'll put them up on the screen again. The black pawn moves 1 square horizontally. We don't mess with the rows. I'm intelligent. We don't mess with the rows, we're just updating the columns every time we want to move. So we're gonna say file plus plus. That's just saying add 1 to the file every time we call move. So now let's make our constructor. So if you look back at the rules, the pawns have to start on the same file first and foremost. That's important, they have to start on the same column, but we're gonna do that check later. But for now, we need to know where to put it. So before we create this piece, we're gonna say, hey, before you put this piece down, where do you wanna put it? And it's gonna have to be the same for both the black pawn and the white pawn. So we're gonna say file equals file. And then the rank, remember from the rules that the black pawn starts on the bottom, so rank 1. And we're done with the black pawn. Let's do the same thing for the white pawn. I don't know how to spell, yo. Okay, so the white pawn, same principle, plays the same as the black pawn. But for the puzzle, remember that the white pawn must start at vertical position 0, row 0. So we have our pawns. Let's go ahead and do our knight, and then we can do the game loop, and we should have our answers. So you know how in chess, the horsey moves in an L shape. That's how I remembered it when I was like 11, playing in chess at like private schools and getting my tail whooped. So in order to implement that, it's always going to move 2 forward for the sake of this, because this is kind of a chessboard on its head, you know, flipped over. So we're going to say, just as a note, in chess, knights move in an L shape. Let's put the chessboard back on the screen and think about how the knight has to move if there's only 2 columns, if there's only 2 rows. Grandmaster right here. I'm telling you, I could give Maurice Ashley a run for his money. So think about how the knight would have to move since there are only 2 rows, right? It can either be on the 0th rank, the 0th row, or the 1st rank, the 1st row. And it has to alternate between the 2. So in code, we're gonna say if rank is 0, the rank is Boolean, essentially, so we're just gonna change it to 1. And if it's not 0, it's 1, so we can just say else, we can just say rank equals 0. And regardless of all of that, the knight's gonna have to move 2 horizontally. So now we need our constructor. The big thing here from the rules is the knight's always gonna start on the 0th column, all the way at the very left. So we say file equals 0, so column is 0. So now we're done with our pieces. Let's write the game loop. Let's get the game going. So in main, all that's gonna go is our function calls. We're gonna create a function to play the game. And here's just gonna be our calls for our test cases to prove that this works. So the first thing we need to do is put our pieces on the board. So we have our definitions for all these pieces. You can think of the classes that we just wrote as definitions of what a piece is and how it plays. So the thing to remember here is from the rules, the pawns share the same column. They start on the same column. All right, so now we write our game loop. So this is kind of cheating. Like I said, there's formulas where you can actually do this mathematically. We're just gonna loop until they intersect. I mean, modern problems, modern solutions, right? I think I got my parentheses right. Parentheses always give me headaches, bro. Did I forget to do? Oops. We gonna go back. We gonna fix that. I did not, in fact, get the parentheses right, but we're straight now. So this is a very long while loop condition, but basically we're saying while none of the pieces intersect, while the knight hasn't caught up with either of the pawns, we're gonna keep the thing rolling. So remember from the rules, the pawns move simultaneously, and all that means is just they move before the knight does. So now outside of the while loop, we can assume if the while loop breaks, then something has intersected, something has happened. So now we need to check which pieces are in which positions. So the first thing we're checking is if the knight takes the white pawn on the upper rank. And what we need to say is if that happens, then we're just gonna print out a string of, okay, the knight took the white pawn at this file, at this column. And that's what we're interested in ultimately. So we want to get the position of the white pawn, and that's where it got caught, essentially. And this method does return an integer array, and so we're just gonna return that. It's essentially a coordinate. So if the knight took the black pawn on the lower rank, that's essentially the same thing. I'm just gonna print out our answer. Alright, we've made it this far. Congratulations. Hopefully you've kept up with me. If not, please feel free to ask questions in the comments. I'd love to help out. This was a fun exercise for me because I'm just getting back into solving puzzles and actually doing them correctly. Yeah, let's do our test cases. I'm copying the test cases from the website and I'll put up a picture. Let's see if we get the same answers. So let's run this. I hope it runs on the first try. Fingers crossed. That's always a good feeling. Look at that, there we go. Let's check our answers. For this one, where it's 04, this is the example that I showed you guys, just the demo. Looks like we're solid. Okay, if you made it this far into the video, I definitely thank you for your patience. I know this was a lot for a first video on my channel. This is the type of thing that I'm excited to share with you guys. This is my day-to-day, especially since we're out on winter break. You know what else to do but practice, practice, practice. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, share this with a friend that may be interested. Turn on post notifications so you know when I upload. Follow me on my socials, links will be in the description below. And definitely follow me on Twitch if you want to give that a special shout out. I think the Twitch stream is going to be live, low key. We get a bunch of people, smart people who want to learn together. Smart or whoever otherwise, you know, if this didn't really vibe with you, that's cool too. It didn't vibe with me for like the first hour I spent on it. That's just how it is. Yeah, thank you for watching. Had a lot of fun. I hope you guys had just as much fun, and I will see you guys in the next one.